Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it? You already know. Like a torta with some bad habits. Bye up, bye up. Is this about the rich rabbit going too far, bringing Thump's family involved in the internet games? Let's get to this intro. Welcome back to the channel, and if you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, make sure you go ahead and do that. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directed in the direction of the dope content that I stay kicking, and I appreciate the support, right? So, this dude, Rich Rabbit, right, from Playboys, allegedly from Playboys, or I don't know if he still represents Playboys. If he does, that's his prerogative, like a Bobby Brown song, that's cool. But he has this thing that he does on social media where he's judging or critiquing certain people, right? People that he feels are not up to par in the gang lifestyle or the criminal lifestyle. And I understand, to each their own. If there's a lane for it, there's money to be made, get that money, man. No one can be mad at you, right? I actually think Rich Rabbit is a cool individual. I like the way he keeps it real. He puts his truth out there. He's not taking no shit from nobody, right? And I got to respect it. I respect that get down. On the other side, you have a guy named Thumpz from Sacramento who did his time allegedly actively the right way, went into prison, functioned amongst the Nortenos as a youngster, did his time, represented his people, planted his flag wherever he went, got out, got into the fitness scene on the internet, and somehow found himself amongst the carnals, right? The carnalismo, the homies, the brothers, the Norteños, right? And in doing so, if you notice, a lot of these guys that have a good head on their shoulders, that have a positive attitude, once they get around their homeboys, they start talking differently. They start representing differently. They start getting a little bit louder on the mic, right? And Thumpz has been known to be a little bit controversial. I've always liked Thumpz. I'm rocking with Thumpz, right? Because I like the message he pushes. But somewhere along the line, he came up on this guy, Rich Rabbit's radar. And Rich Rabbit has now decided to go in on Thumpz and is getting kind of heated, right? I seen over the weekend it was getting a little too loose and a little too crazy. Now, let me explain something to you guys. When people are an active gang members or they're involved in that lifestyle, just because they're involved in the lifestyle, albeit it may affect their family and their friends and their circle, obviously, right, it's going to affect the people around them. Whether they're getting locked up, there's drive-by shootings, people are recognizing them or their family members on social media, whatever it may be, you know, there's that indirect hostility towards people around you based off fucking your actions and things that you do. So, the story was brought up by Rich Rabbit, I guess exposed by Rich Rabbit, that one of Thump's family members, a very close family member, and I'm not going to go into details on exactly who, because it's none of my fucking business, right? But one of his family members in the past was accused and convicted of some weird shit, okay? Some bad shit. And I think Thumpz and the people around him will agree it was some weird and bad shit. Now, being that this is a family member of Thumpz and someone who was close to him, does that affect him and his standings? Should he be judged based upon what that man did and was convicted for? Absolutely not, right? If that was the case, everybody would be dicked up. Everybody has a family member that done told on someone, that done dropped out, that done did some weird shit. And now let's not get it twisted. Dropping out of a gang, changing your life or whatever the case may be is not equivalent to what that man was accused of, tried, and convicted for. Okay, so let's not get that twisted at all. Those are two whole different fucking genres in life. But still, you do not judge a man based off what his family has done, because like I said, if that was the case, everybody would be caught up. Everybody has a family member that done fell off in the gang. And does that mean that the whole family is no good while incarcerated? Does that mean that that man's actions and the things he's done to people reflect on you? No, it's not a great look, right? And there's going to be people that don't know the game that question it. People like Rich Rabbit, who I'm not disrespecting and saying he doesn't know what's up, but I think it's very petty to bring up or even expose Thump's family for what they did in the past and try to make it look like, based upon their actions, he's liable for that. That's going to change the rhythm of what he's got going on. Absolutely not. Whatever Thump's family member chose to do, they chose to do. He was a young child. He had nothing to do with that. And I'm sure he's heard stories and would rather not have heard them stories, right? So with that being said, Rich Rabbit going in on Thumpz and exposing the fact that that man's family member has a bad case, basically he's trying to say the apple don't fall too far from the tree. He's trying to say, if you have family members that are involved in weird shit like this, what are you involved in? Now, I seen the back and forth between Thumpz and Rich Rabbit, and I seen Rich Rabbit was holding his own in the conversation, and Thumpz was getting a little bit flustered and a little bit upset. I could already tell Thumpz is a youngster, a young Norteno, a striving young Norteno, and the attitude there has always been, fuck that, come get some. Let's get it then. Let's just do this. Fuck the talk. Stop all the back and forth, the internet shit. Let's get it. Now, at the same time, that's where it came to. Why these guys ended up on a phone call even discussing this stuff is out of my mind. I had never seen someone from the North, even sit there and answer questions of someone from the South or vice versa and take it with a grain of salt. You have to understand there's always going to be a bias there between North and South, unfortunately. There's always going to be dudes from the South that feel a certain way about dudes from up North and vice versa, and there's nothing that can change that, right? So there's that little bit of bias, and that's just enough to set someone off. So me, myself, I've never seen a Norteno, Northerner, sit there and have a conversation with the Southsider or an ex-Southsider or whatever Rich Rabbit claims to be at this point in time and take his words for what he's saying. I've never seen that, right? What I've seen since I've been around, man, is dudes that could have a civil conversation and respect each other. But this conversation between these guys was more of a back and forth thing, more of a disrespect thing. And I could see that Thumpz was getting flustered because Rich Rabbit was basically laughing in his face, was picking at him and trying to get a reaction. Rich Rabbit is well versed in the social media game, where I think Thumpz ain't really about social media. He's on social media, but that's not his thing. He's more about his little fitness thing he's got going on, his family, his children, and, the business. And so it went from 0 to 100 fast. And there was a lot of shit being thrown around. Of course, the accusation of what's going on with Thump's family in the past. We're talking about years ago and what they were convicted of. He was trying to say that was a bad reflection of Thumpz. And how can Thumpz be around that individual? Whereas Thumpz answered the question and said, hey, he hasn't been around that individual since he was 9 years old. That individual was ostracized and exorcised away from the family. And you got to take a man on his word. But even then, how many of you watching this have family members that have some wild shit going on, right? Or got caught up on some bullshit, and you still see them at the family reunion. You still see them at the tienda. And it's your family, your sangre, your blood, right? Same blood pumping through your veins. And you might not want to hang around with them. You might not want anything to do with them. You might have cut them off. But you can't deny that's still your primo or your uncle or your father or your whoever it is to you, right? You just got to shake your head and go with the flow. So Thumpz is in a situation where just because his family member got caught up on some weird shit, that has nothing to do with him. Because if that was the case, like I said, then everybody would be caught up and judged based upon their family members' bullshit. Now, there are families that, they have a history of telling. Everybody done told in the family, right? And those are the type of families where nobody wants to be around once they get that bad name in the community, in the barrio, in the hood. People tend to shy away from that particular family and that particular last name just based upon some case factors and things that they have been known to do in the past. But in this case, we're talking about one individual that did something heinous and despicable. And yes, it's bad. And Thumpz is not denying it. He's not hiding it, right? It's very bad. But Thumpz had nothing to do with that. He's his own man. He's a grown man. Now, in that conversation that Rich Rabbit and Thumpz had, there was something else brought up that I never really knew about. I guess it's been out there. I guess Thumpz admitted it, and I wanted to touch upon it for a little bit, right? So when Thumpz went to prison, his alleged case, he got into a shootout, I guess, in front of a Panda Express with a Southerner, or he at least pulled a thing out on a Southerner after the Southerner disrespected him and blapped him, right? He let him have it. Unfortunately, the Southerner's family was there. There was other people there. And in the midst of this confusion, in the midst of this gangbanging, these childish acts that were happening out there in the community, right there for everyone to see, where there's children and old people and people walking around, there was shots fired that Thumpz has not denied, and a 10-year-old child was struck, okay? Became a victim. Some hardcore wannabe gangsters would call that a casualty of war. Some people would say, hey, wrong place, wrong time. But the truth of the matter is, you got to know your place and time and everything. And there is a time and a place for everything. You got to know when to hold them and when to fold them, like a fucking Kenny Rogers song, right? If you see an adversary in public and he disrespects you, but there's children around, there's community members, people that are not involved, hey, you got to take that one on the chin and double back, right? You got to know when to keep that shit in the motherfucking waistband. You know, but a lot of people are raised differently and they're laced up differently. And you can't hate on someone for jumping the gun or for someone just going straight to it. I understand. There's plenty of times where anger management comes into play, right? You get angry. You're like, fuck it. You get mad. Hey, you get off where you're mad at, right? You get down where your crown's at. I get it. And in that case, unless you're really there and seeing what Thumpz was going through, you can't judge him. Now, the child being struck by a bullet was not a good look and not a good thing. And for the life of me, I do not understand how Thumpz was allowed to function within the jailhouse facilities in the prison as an active Norteno, having that on his case, right? Now, I understand that depending upon where he went, and I don't know the case factors, I don't know exactly what happened. You know, it wasn't like he was trying to hurt a child. It wasn't like he was going out of his way to do that at all. But there still was a child involved in the case that got struck by a bullet. I mean, isn't that kind of the reason why drive-bys got shut down in the past? I know there was a couple of reasons. One being that innocent people kept getting hurt. Two, it was bringing unnecessary and unwanted attention to organizations that felt it was just shining a bad light, and that's not what they were trying to promote, right? So in doing so, on all sides, you know, throughout the gang communities, North, South, Crip, Blood, most everybody decided to come together and with a common understanding that drive-bys were just a cowardice act and not something that they should be involved in because it was a bad look for the gangs, right? So to do something like that, a shooting, and a child gets accidentally struck, who's to blame? Well, obviously the man who pulled the gun out, right? Because you can never take back the pain that child felt, them being traumatized, or the whole situation. I'm sure Thumpz is remorseful. I'm sure he thinks about it. I'm sure there's people that question it. But from the understanding I get, it was just an incident that transpired. Two guys gangbanging, two young guys gangbanging. They ran into each other. Thumpz allegedly tried to walk away from the situation, try to do the right thing. Dude pressed the issue. Thumpz put out the blapper and blacked them, right? And then a child got hurt too. And Rich Rabbit's bringing that up, saying that Thumpz is a bad person, that cannot be, there's no excuse for that. And I'll say this, neither one of these guys should be discussing shit like that on the internet, as far as, you know, bringing that up, because that 10-year-old child has a family that I'm sure wants their child to forget, wants to overcome that tragedy, and to be utilizing that as a tool to hurt someone's character is kind of fucked up. But I get it. I get where Rich Rabbit is coming from. He's saying the character of this man Thumpz is not what everyone thinks it is. It's not crispy and clean. I could tell you this, man. Accidents happen, bullshits happen. That's why gangbanging and all that is such a risky thing to do, because it hurts a lot of innocent people. There's a lot of people that ain't in the mix that get affected by it. You know, you can't sit here and say in one breath, oh man, this 10-year-old, oh man, you did this, you did. That was an innocent victim that got affected by two individuals with some fucking a different mindset, right? And then at the same time saying, oh man, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna blame you for that. You did that. Look, he did fire the gun. Yes, the bullet did come from him. He's already did his time for it. He paid his debt to society and to that family. I'm sure they'll never recover and never be the same. You never can with a bullet in you. But still, at the end of the day, he did what he was supposed to do to pay back his debt, right? But then you can't sit there and say, man, this man's guilty of this. Man, that's a bad shit. He's a bad person for that. And then turn around at the same time and say, oh, but you be doing some positive shit with your little workout. Now, fuck that workout. You done shot a kid, right? That's not cool. But it's not like he went to go do that. You know, this whole mess between these two guys and this back and forth and this, you know, hood hopping allegations and all these different things, it's unnecessary, especially on social media and on the internet, because all it does is give people ideas. You know, to see someone from up north and see someone from down south putting all their business or putting each other's business out there on social media for everyone to see, to critique, to judge, like myself, man, is wild. You would never seen this back in the days. Would have never seen it. Would have never happened. There wouldn't have been no correspondence, no words, no hugs, no me mugs or shoulder shrugs between North and South. It would have just been nothing. It'd have been silence on the airwaves, right? Like Thumpz said, if Rich wants to get it, come get it in sangre, in blood, right? That was the mentality, but without being said. Because see, now what you've done, Thumpz, is you've put it out there. Come get it in blood. So now if something happens to Rich Rabbit or Rich Rabbit decides to pull up and get that in blood, right? Now you're going to be incarcerated. Now your child that you just had with your old lady is going to be fatherless. Now your family and Rich Rabbit's family are going to be sonless, because what's going to happen is two guys over an internet argument, two men that would have never probably ran into each other or known each other, are arguing over nothing. Whatever Thump's family did in the past, whatever Thumpz did in the past does not affect Rich Rabbit whatsoever. And the people that are rocking with Thumpz are going to continue rocking with him, period. You might change one or two people's minds. One or two people might say, damn, I didn't know that, right? And feel a certain type of way, but fuck those one or two people, because those one or two people were always flim flam and not riding the fucking fence anyways. That's how I feel about my shit. I didn't know Gunner fucking did that. Well, guess what? Now you do. How you feel? Oh, I don't like you anymore. I didn't like you from the beginning. Show! Right? And that's just that. With Rich Rabbit, you know, I'm sure he has a lot of things in his past. I'm sure his family members are not squeaky clean as well. And, you know, it would be crazy for someone to go back and start looking into shit like that and all that. You know, it's just unnecessary. I'm not going to be that one, because these guys, I respect both of their get downs. I hope they both prosper on social media, and I hope they both prosper in life. But this shit's getting too far, judging a man based upon what his family member did in the past, and saying, you know, hey, if your family member or they get caught up in a weird case and that makes you a weirdo. Nah, that's not the way it works, man. You think when I was no longer in good standings that my brother wasn't still rocking, or that my primos ain't still rocking, or that my homeboys ain't still rocking? What I did has no effect on them. They're their own men. I'm my own man, right? I got people I know in the past that were close to me that got caught up on fucking shitty situations or bad cases, and I just don't fuck with them no more, right? But that doesn't mean I could be judged based on their actions, or they can be judged based on my actions. I mean, anyone could judge. There's a lot of judgmental people. Obviously, Rich Rabbit, I don't think he really is judging Thumpz, and deep down inside, he knows Thumpz is not responsible for that. It's more so of I'm going to expose you because I don't like you, or we're going back and forth, homie. I got the fucking ace. I got the rabbit in the hole, man. I got the ace card, right? That's all that pretty much is. And I think he had Thumpz flustered in their conversation because Thumpz just wanted to fight. Thumpz is like, man, pull up. Fuck the shit, right? He ain't trying to talk and go back and forth. Hey, Rich Rabbit, that brother right there is slick. He's slick. He's smart. He knows how to aggravate and antagonize people. And that's his whole get down. You know, shut that shit up, right? He's trying to antagonize and aggravate people, and people are falling for the bait. You know what I'm saying? The rabbit's putting the carrot out there, and everyone's doing the what's up, doc. It's crazy, man. I hope Thumpz realizes that this does not affect him in any way. And likewise for Rich Rabbit, man. You know, hopefully these guys can just go their own ways and it doesn't get ugly. But this is just another perfect example of reigniting the bullshit between North and South. Shit you never thought you'd see. shit that shouldn't be put on the internet. Anyways, that's just my little opinion on it. I got some good videos for you guys, man. Make sure you guys tap in with the collective clips, as I'm going to be dropping a lot of supers this weekend. We just got so much going on. I've been away. I shouldn't have left you without some dope content to step to. To step to the content. Right, let's go. Rich Rabbit says content. Let's go, man. Let's get it in. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I honestly and truly believe in. That's the betterment of all people. This video right here is sponsored by Barrio Liquors in Turlock, California. If you're ever in the Turlock area, pull up to the Barrio and get you some icy and cold to drink. Also by Sticks and Stones Yard Service in Tucson, Arizona. If you're in the Tucson area, make sure that you tap in if you need yard work done with Sticks and Stones, and he got you covered like a state blanket, itchy, better warm.